Okay, so I just filmed and I'm gonna post this little building fly video where I start an open space with the loader. Here's the loader. A loader from the outside. Let me get away from this restart bubble. That's the restart location. So you can see that there's the front camera right there. That's for docking, and then the top camera bubble has the other different cameras. You can have the still look camera. The snap look camera. I just couldn't remember which button I had it to. And you can see how stable the snap look camera is now with the 6-frame filter. Of course, the FPV camera. And please excuse my lighting, you know, I just don't know about lighting. The camera's for giving different lighting. One day I'll address that, or maybe I'll leave it. You know, I kind of like how the different cameras have different lighting. It's kind of fun. So, I just want to talk about some things that I changed. One thing is this notification here says press backslash to pause instead of press escape to menu. So if I go ahead and pause. So config is now accessible from every pause menu, but you can also, and always could before, access config. No, I don't know why the dang button doesn't show here. I gotta reset my defaults, but I'll do that later. The config button is the back quote. It doesn't say that here because it doesn't need to have it assigned here. This back quote, this config button is assigned elsewhere in the configuration software. So anywhere that you're at, you can always hit the back quote. You can hit the back quote while you're flying around, and look, it doesn't pause or anything like that. So if you wanted to set your ship controls and make sure that you're going the right direction, you can do that right here, and you can actually see. I mean, it's a little darked out, but you can see enough to make sure that your pitch isn't reversed or something like that. Okay, so then back to the pause menu. Okay, so jumping right ahead to the last update. Okay, the last stuff I put in there, well, one thing is I put a controls description. So the objective of the controls description is that a new player or somebody who doesn't know how to do something, if when they look at, I can just hit this at any time, when they look at these ship controls, there's a word there, and you could play around with it, half thrust lats, and you might figure it out, what's happening when you hit the button, but you might not figure it out. You know, some of these controls only work on one vehicle, and you might press the button and nothing happens, and then you just don't understand why the directionalizer didn't do anything while you're playing the rock hopper, or whatever the case may be. So you might come here and you don't know what race type is, or when you press the button, you know, maybe when you're in the game, press the button, you don't see what changes. You know, what changed? I don't know. What does that even mean anyway? So, going to the instructions, you can read the controls description, and some things are not addressed, like forward is forward. I don't think people need to know what forward is. But if my things are different from another game, then there's a brief description, or sometimes there's a little bit longer of a description. One example of that is the cameras. My cameras have certain functionality that may not be obvious, so I talk about the functionality of the different cameras for each vehicle, because each vehicle actually has a unique camera suite. The forward-only vehicle is a good example of that. It has a snap-look camera on the front and a snap-look camera on the reverse, so to help you move around. And you may not know what that is. So the snap look camera is able to be aimed by the player with an axis, and the camera's angle is tied to the axis position. Whereas in the loader, there's a still look camera, and this camera is able to be aimed by the player with an axis, but the camera's rotation rate is tied to the axis position. And the camera can be recentered using the recenter button, whereas the snap look camera actually automatically recenters if you let go of the joystick, which will then recenter because the position of the camera is tied directly to the stick position. So another thing that I have changed, I have added hoops ignore needs weight. So that doesn't actually matter here. The ship doesn't have any weights right now. If I go to the drone, actually my favorite example is the rock hopper, and I'll pop in here to the rock hopper test. And you see there's a weight right here, just showing this part of the environment. And you can play with that, you can try to land on it, you can try to dock to it. But let's say that you have a course. Okay, so let's say that you have a course, and I have a course, hop test 121. Loading it up, and here we have these rings, and you can see that my number of laps is 3. My I just changed something. My timer was count on reset after countdown. No, yeah. And then my last hoop is the last hoop. And the hoops are gonna follow the needs weight. But if I fly through these with the weight, but I programmed the race without a weight, then they won't trigger. So if I want to just connect to this weight and then just ignore the fact that it doesn't need weight, then I can make my course, make another course, and then later I'm like, oh, I just want to connect to a weight and fly everything. So now this toggle hoops at the very top, you can see it changing. Hoops follow needs weight, or hoops ignore needs weight. So they're going to ignore the needs weight. So then maybe I'll try to race. So here I'm racing. Now I can go, but I want to just here fly over these weights. So let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say I just want to connect to the weight. If I reset, it'll disconnect it to the weight. Well, let's see. Let me just reset. Maybe quit racing. Let's say I toggle to count on first gate. Now when I start the race, it's not going to start the timer until I go to the first hoop. Then I can just come over here whenever I feel, however I get ready, and I can dock to the weight. So for the rock hopper weights, you can see there's 4 little pads. You can see the green X means that I'm lining up to the inside of the pad field. So if I line the top 2 bars of the green X up with these green bars there, now you see that I have the green square and I can press the dock button and then dock to the weight. And this is a lightweight, so it's not that dramatic. If I push forward, I don't tilt that fast. With the heavier weights, you really don't go that much forward, you know, tilt because the weight is so much heavier. And now I can fly the whole entire course if I want to. Start the timer right now, and because it's ignoring the weights, it'll trigger all of the weight, and I can just fly the course like regular, but it has to do with the feeling of the deal with the weight. So that's what the hoops ignore. And then if I press restart, you can see that no longer have the weight connected. The weight is back where it was. Okay, so then before that, I also added last hoop is last hoop. I don't know if I made a video about that. Or it could be last hoop is first hoop. First hoop is last loop. So that's for maybe you want the last hoop to be the last hoop in a line race, like a drag race and a line race where you go down the line and you come out the other side and the race is over. Or maybe you made more of an oval race, and even though your start location is over here, you go through the first hoop, but you want players to, or you want to have to go through that first hoop again instead of coming out the last hoop and the race is over. Now you can set that to be the first hoop is the last hoop, or the last hoop is the last hoop. And that setting will save when you save your level. The hoops ignore needs weights doesn't save when you save the level, but the last hoop is last hoop. If you save, it'll save that setting, so that if you always want it to be that way, you want to save your race and then you just want to be able to load your race and then race it, then that setting will save. The other settings that will save are racing here. The laps, this is the race type, infinite laps, number of laps, infinite laps with reset on weights reset on each lap. So you may or may not want your weights to reset each lap. You may want to come around and then pick it up somewhere and then put it somewhere, and then if you plan your course correctly, then maybe then you can come around and it's always where you want it anyways, or whatever the case may be. But if you want to come through and then you want your weight to be in the same place on the track every time, the weights will reset each lap if you have that toggle on. So if your hoops ignore needs weight, actually, that may make for a situation where it's easier for you to have a course where you don't reset the weights. Because if you fly through the first half of the course without a weight, and then the second half of the course with the weight, the second lap, and then you leave that weight there, and then the second lap you fly through the whole course without a weight. If your weight is a checkpoint, that won't work, so you need to reset your weights. But if your weight is not a checkpoint, you just don't make it a checkpoint, and then you just know that you can take it around. And then you have hoops ignore needs weights, and you can have courses where you actually cycle the weight first half, then you go around until you come back to it again, you pick it up, do the second half with the weight, and then go around and then do it again without the weight, and then move it again. So the hoops ignore needs weight, and then the weights on reset. That can make for different kinds of interesting race, if you know how to set it up, basically. But the lap style will save, and then the other thing is the timer style will save. And those are the race settings. Okay, so I don't remember if there was anything else that I really updated since the last video. I feel like I said some of that stuff twice before. One thing that's in the controls description is how to turn these cameras on and off and what they're supposed to be. I did not really make, I should make just a brief description of each vehicle type. Like you can kind of get the gist from the cameras section, because really that's like one of the main things that's different. But I should make, like, maybe in the pause menu, or maybe from the instructions, ship description for each ship. Like this one is supposed to be a lunar lander. So you can't tell here that it's supposed to be a lunar lander. That would be obvious. And then I would put that in the ship description. You might say, well, that doesn't look like a lunar lander, it just looks like a tank. Thrusters on it. That's because it's a remote control collection vehicle. So it is supposed to be a lunar lander. And I should have a description of that, so that it's more obvious. So here you are on the moon. Let me see if I have a camera. So here it is. Gravity. Three cameras right down the front, and we're viewing through the placeable cam, so you can read all about it in the controls description, and we'll call that a video. So please excuse my lack of organization on the video. I'm really not big into planning the video. I understand that it makes it difficult to watch, but it makes it a lot easier for me to make it, and nobody's really watching it anyway, so Alright, thank you very much.